All right, this is John Cole with growingyourgreens.com. Today we have another exciting episode for you. Today I am in Homestead, Florida, visiting Tom at Sleepy Lizard Avocado Farm. Now, you may have seen Tom online. He's on my friend's channel at Fruitful Trees with Paul in a lot of videos. Tom also has his own YouTube channel, Sleepy Lizard. Link down below to that. Nonetheless, the reason why Tom started the Sleepy Lizard Avocado Farm is because when he was working in the corporate industry as a vice president of some famous, multi-billion-dollar company, right? He's like, one day I'm gonna age out of the system and they're gonna lay me off. And he kept doing things that kind of make himself important, make himself needed, so they wouldn't do that. And then basically he found this farm and bought it. But then, of course, one day he aged out, they laid him off, but then he had his backup plan. So he figured, okay, if I buy a farm with fruit trees and farm the fruit off it, I could make it income to basically pay the mortgage, pay our food, and pay all the the costs that come along with owning a house. So basically, we're not going broke when we retire, So that's a short story, and that's basically what he did. Not only does he have this 5 acres that he manages, he also leases other farmland from people with established fruit trees that he then will come in with his crew, take care of and harvest, and then sell the fruit to mostly packing houses, where in my opinion he literally gets paid pennies on the dollar compared to what the packing houses then sell it to the wholesale industry, and then in turn sell it to the retail produce industry. The farmers really get very little money. It is quite unfortunate. So then, in order to just avoid the whole system of the commercial produce industry, he then started making YouTube videos, and then basically he will sell you his fruit direct. And this is a very good idea for Tom, because not only will he get more money, but more importantly, you guys are actually going to get better quality fruit than the produce industry will provide you guys. And the produce industry, right, a lot of things, a lot of times are picked too early. The fruit will never ripen up. It'll never have that full flavor, right? They're also very uniform in size. What if you grew up in the Caribbean with these giant mangoes or giant avocados that you haven't had since you were a kid, because in the stores the avocados are always super tiny, right? That's where he comes in and can literally ship you a box of mangoes or a box of avocados or even the Monstera Deliciosa, and you're gonna get some really nice sized fruits. Anyways, that's what I want to do today at Sleepy Lizard Avocado Farm, is walk you guys around the orchard, share with you guys how he's growing, some of the unique things he's doing, some of the things I thought was really cool when he walked us around on the tour. But then more importantly, at the end of this episode, which is going to be the majority of this episode, is we're going to go ahead and interview Tom to ask him all the things about avocados that people think are true but are actually myths, because there's a lot of misinformation about avocados, unfortunately, and leave it to an avocado farmer that grows these fruits for a living, how to do it properly, instead of just YouTubing experts or YouTubers making content that actually don't pan out to be true. So let's head into Sleepy Lizard and check this place out. All right guys, so as we walk into the orchard, you're gonna see basically most of this is basically 5 acres of avocados that are really nicely pruned. As you can see, there's like an aisleway all the way down, avocados on both sides, and the ideal is to have like a canopy right in the middle like you're seeing. The avocados basically touch each other on the middle and kind of like make an arch so that you could easily pick the fruit, and the majority of fruit on his farm, with a few exceptions, stay really low that make it easy to pick. That being said, in random spots you'll see something like a mango tree. These are some huge mangoes, Florida grown, that he can also ship you. And the reason for mango trees, some of the Mamey and sapote planted within the avocado orchard, is because some of the avocados got like some kind of disease spread by a beetle, which then lays the fungus, and then they kind of like, the larvae eats the fungus and then causes more beetles, and then it messes up everything. So they basically chip the whole tree in place to the ground to get it out of there. And then maybe the avocado tree comes back, and if it doesn't come back, then he'll plant like a new tree in its place. And he wants to diversify, from just having avocados and having all your eggs in one basket. He'll have different kinds of fruits that also, are harvested in different seasons. And once again, he will ship you ripe mangoes, like literally picked right off the tree, And he doesn't like to harvest things early like some farmers, especially when he's shipping them to people, because he wants people to have the best fruit experience. All right, guys, so one of the things I see happen online so much is that people see, you know, like you could put toothpicks in avocado seed and then put in a glass and then it basically will grow a new tree. What you're looking at behind me is the reason why you never want to plant an avocado seed. Number one, avocado is not true to seed. So you're gonna get new genetics, which in some cases could be good, because you may create the next amazing avocado. In some cases it may not be so good, because maybe that fruit is just a garbage fruit, doesn't taste good. But in all cases, from seed, an avocado tree will turn out like this. And you guys can see the tree basically just grows straight up. This tree now, he's wasted space, like literally in his orchard. I think this is about 11 or 12 years old now. For 11 or 12 years old, and a commercial farmer would never do this because he doesn't care what a seedling tree looks like, you know, but because he also makes YouTube videos, he wants to be able to show people this is what happens when you let a seedling grow. And I mean, it looks like a nice tree, I'm not gonna deny that. But if we look at any one of these trees, like here's another tree, I mean, it's a bit smaller, but this is not a seedling, this is a grafted tree, right? So grafted trees that have been using, grafted from, you know, wood from old trees, you know, they kind of got that like ingrained, like I'm an old tree, I don't need to like push a lot of growth. I just want to kind of branch out and kind of hang out, right? So if you look around, if we look around his orchard, a lot of the lower trees basically just don't go straight up. They have a lot of offshoots, right? This basically does a few things. Number one, every upshoot is going to provide more leaves and places where fruit can grow, so you're going to get more fruit. Also, the fruit is going to be a lot lower and easier to harvest as well. Plus, of course, on a grafted tree, you're going to get the same exact fruits that you're expecting, whereas in a seedling, you never really know what you're gonna get. So yeah, don't plant an avocado seed. If you wanna do it for a kind of fun science project with your kids, I think that's great. I mean, the other thing you could do is you could grow a seedling avocado and then use it to graft onto, but then the challenge is, you know, there's probably better root stocks to use than just some random seed that you bought at the grocery store, all right? So yeah, seedling avocados in his book is definitely a no-no. All right, so once again, this is a grafted tree. You guys can see all the upshoots, and the reason why the seedling trees go straight up is because if the seedling tree is in like the forest, right, and there's all these trees that are lower around it, it needs to shoot up growth to basically get above all the existing trees so it can basically outcompete them. Whereas once again, the old school trees that have been here a while, they're like, man, I'm good, I can get lots of sun, but basically branching out instead of up. So you guys that live in hurricane prone zones, if you guys planted avocados, you are smart. If you planted citrus, not so much, right? The avocado are one of the trees that can recover after a hurricane. So for example, this tree was affected by the hurricane. It basically fell this direction and fell over here. Then what's happened is they basically pushed it back up, and they basically had to put a piece of wood there to kind of prop it up because they wanted to come back this direction. Basically nailed the wood in to the tree so it kind of holds it in place, and then the tree recovered, right? In the area behind the cameraman, there used to be a whole row of like 200 citrus that basically they tried the same technique with, and then the citrus didn't bounce back. So it's like the roots on the avocados are definitely more flexible, you know, than roots on citrus that tend to snap and break. And these are flexible to an extent, you know, and you have to do this rescue process relatively sooner rather than later, because at some point, you know, you will end up losing the tree. All right, guys, so now I want to show you guys another area of his farm that he's currently experimenting with and moving out this technique to other areas. You know, one of the things in Florida especially is to try to have more than one crop share the same space. So, you know, if you have big, tall, overstory trees such as avocados, maybe you could grow pineapples or maybe some vegetables down below in the aisles. Maybe you could have a mid-story crop. So I know in like the date palms in the Central Valley, they'll grow like mangoes as the understory. The date palms will protect the mangoes and keep them from freezing, for example. But here, one of the things they're doing is they're using the Monstera Deliciosa. Now, this probably doesn't have a big commercial market. It's rare I even see it in commercial trade. But what he does do is he sells these online. And because he doesn't have a ton of inventory, he always has people that want to buy the Monstera Deliciosa. And some people on YouTube have basically commented in the past on his videos on like, why are you sacrificing your avocado tree for the Monstera? Because what happens is Monstera, basically, a lot of you guys may know this because a lot of you guys may have this as house plants, but you don't realize that the Monstera also produces an edible fruit, which we'll show you guys in a minute. But what happens also, like over on this side, is a Monstera is a climber. This guy will basically climb up naturally, like in the rainforest, up the trees. So you guys can see the Monstera is literally climbing up the avocado, and literally at some point is going to choke out this avocado tree, and he will be losing his avocado tree to the Monstera. The Monstera is literally making the avocado tree just another structure, or literally a trellis that it's using to get height, you know, to gain more sun and to get out of some of the deep shade underneath the avocados. And so some people are saying, man, Tom, you're dumb for basically allowing the Monstera to grow up into the avocado, because one day you're gonna basically sacrifice the tree. But he's like, hey, I could sacrifice $60 in avocados, or you know, in the year, or maybe like $600 in Monstera fruit, because he let it grow up the tree, right? So what makes more sense when you're a businessman? Right? If you're doing this at home, don't let the Monsteras grow up your tree unless you have a lot of extra space and you have junk trees to use. But you know, for him, that's a good investment to use this space, and he may be converting to more, growing more Monstera. So let's go ahead and find a fruit for you guys to show you guys what they look like. All right, guys, so this is the Monstera Deliciosa fruit. It's not ready and seasoned yet, but what happens is all these scales will basically drop off when it's completely ripe. You need to basically cut these, and then he'll ship them to you. You gotta harvest them when they're ripe, and we'll have to ask him when you know how to harvest these guys and what time of year they are ready. You'll harvest them, and then you'll basically stand it upside down in like a glass jar or a cup, and then basically the scales will end up dropping off, and they'll keep dropping off all the way down to the bottom. When the scales are fully dropped off, then the fruit is ripe to eat. It like tastes between a pineapple and something else, but I've never had a truly ripe one. I've gotten them when they're like underripe and they burn the heck out of my tongue. So I'm really excited one day to try a truly ripe, properly ripened Monstera Deliciosa fruit. But I'm told these things can be super sweet and without any acid flavor if properly ripened. So I'm really waiting for that day myself. All right, guys, so now I have the pleasure of interviewing Tom, the owner of Sleepy Lizard Avocado Farm. And this is like a legitimate farm because he's selling his crops not just to like the local community, he also ships it across the country via retail, but actually a lot of his crops actually get sold to the wholesale produce industry. So we're gonna learn a lot about him, about the business of farming versus like, you know, like small scale farming. Like this is more big scale farming, but of course, you know, that's his lens, but he'll also give you guys his insight on how to make you know, a smaller farm, some of the practices that he does to make it profitable. And of course, we're gonna kind of dive deep into some of the myths about growing avocados that's claimed online that aren't true. So Tom, the first question is, why did you decide to buy an avocado farm in the first place?
I worked for corporate America. I was a vice president at one of the world's largest corporations, and I observed that no one leaves on their own terms. People get laid off, people get downsized, people get fired, stuff like that. And I said to my wife, I don't think I'm gonna make it all the way to retirement, so let's do something to prepare for the eventuality that when the layoff notice comes to me, we will at least have an income high enough to pay for our house, taxes, and homeowners insurance. So, you know, that's typically most people's biggest expense per month. I thought if I could at least do something to lock that down, then my options as to where I want to take next steps in my career are open.
But and then why did you decide a farm instead of, you know, some other kind of business or something else that you could do and make money from?
Well, we looked into multiple things. Like one of the things to do would buy a multi-unit building, live in one unit and rent out the others. We looked into boarding horses. But I used to do a lot of bicycle racing, cycling, and Ironman triathlons and stuff. And this is where we would train, down here in the agricultural area, because there's not a lot of traffic. It's a safer place to ride a bike. And I noticed that there's a lot of small farms, 5 acres, 10 acres. You know, I wasn't looking to invest in a 1,000-acre farm and all the equipment and stuff like that. I looked into it and I learned that you could buy a 5 or 10-acre farm, and then you don't even need expertise. There are caretaking companies that you could then outsource the work to and run it as a business, collect the income, and like I said, use it to augment, or in our case, completely pay for our mortgage. And so we came down here and started looking around and looked at different types of crops: mangoes, lychees, longans, avocados. And we learned that the avocado is like the steady crop. That's the one that you're going to make kind of the same amount of money every year. You're going to get a crop every year. There's a market every year. Lychees, you can have a really good year and then 2 years with no crop. Mango, you could have a couple good months, then a boat comes with imports, a ship comes in with imports, boom, the price drops. And we learned that avocado is a steady crop. If you were to make a comparison to investing in the stock market versus the bond market, avocados are more like a bond. They're going to be there. There's going to be a guaranteed income with them. And then the timing was perfect, because that was right around the time that the avocado became cute. It became kind of like a social thing. People started buying avocado pillows and making little jokes, you know, t-shirts, I'm the good fat, you know, and a picture of an avocado. And it became a very trendy fruit. And it also became, a lot of people started calling it like a super fruit. It became, it caught the attention of like people that are into health and into nutrition and stuff like that. And that was just pure luck.
And then how many years ago was that?
14 years ago.
And when you bought the farm, was it your initial thought to, like, you know, have a management company come in and caretake the property, so they would just basically harvest the fruit, care the land, and then basically give you the income from it, or what?
100%. That was 100% the plan, yes. We did do that for a couple of years. We just let the caretaking company take over. And in fact, the large company that I used to work for, after 3 years, they called me back. They had me come back to work for them. I lasted 4 months. And I realized I don't need to do this. And they started with a lot of that corporate nonsense. And I said, you know what? I've been living without you guys for 3 years. I don't need this. And I quit. I went back, and then I quit after 4 months. I gave them the George Costanza, it's not you, it's me. But it was them. But I said, it's not you, it's me. Quit. And I said, you know what? I'm going to come and give this a go. Now, in the meantime, I had made a few YouTube videos about farming and about avocados, and they started to catch on. And I started getting some notoriety or some views and things like that. And people would say to me, they'd say, hey, I want to try those avocados. Can you send me a box? I'd say, text me your address. And I'd go down the post office, and on my own dime, I'd pay for a shipping label, and I would send people free avocados. And then it hit me like I'm spending like $400 a month giving complete strangers free avocados. But it felt a little awkward if someone said, hey, can I have a box of avocados, for me to say to them, well, send me $20, send me $50. So I decided to create a website, guacfarm.com, and that kind of depersonalized it. When people asked me for free avocados, I would say, well, here, I sell them at guacfarm.com, and people started buying them. Now, John, just Monday, we dropped off 3,500 pounds on this.
3,500 pounds of avocados from your farm.
This time it was mangoes. This week it was mangoes, yeah.
Wow, that's insane. You're moving lots of basically mangoes just directly to people. And, you know, to me, that's like a really good service, because people can't get Florida mangoes in the store. You're getting imported, you know, Mexican mangoes that are hot water dipped or irradiated, which then they're picked way too early. They have basically next to zero flavor. They're not even that sweet. And I mean, I've had mangoes, well, here today from Tom. They're amazing.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and I'm moving over just a little bit. I don't know if you can see the flatbed at the end of the row, but like I used to have a little yellow wagon, and I would put a dozen boxes and drag my boxes in the wagon. Now we're dropping them off by flatbed. Okay, so as that started to grow, one year I said, you know what? I would love to sell as much fruit retail as I'm selling wholesale, just in dollar amount.
But this is the management company caretaking, or this
the caretaking company was still running the show.
They're caretaking, but then you're kind of like,
but then I'm coming out. Top. I'm picking out
my own. You're taking a few mangoes off the or avocados off the top, and then shipping them kind of under the table from the care company.
Yeah, but no, that was fine. That didn't violate my deal with them or nothing like that at all. I they could come and pick, or I could pick and send to the packing house myself. It's not like they didn't own the avocados. I paid them a percentage of what I was making. Right?
I see.
And so I would come out with a picking pole and a tub or my wagon, so then what happened was I said, you know what? I wonder if I could sell dollar-wise as much retail as I'm selling wholesale. And I finally hit that number. And then I said, next year I wonder if I could sell as much fruit wholesale, like half my crop wholesale and half my crop retail. That year, I sold the whole crop retail.
Wow.
I didn't sell a single avocado wholesale. And that led me to now I need more fruit. Now I'm big enough, I need more fruit. In the meantime, that caretaking company kind of dissolved, but the guy that was the supervisor over my product, we stayed friends. He's a super great guy. I love him like a brother. Like, I love this guy like a brother, And I said to him, I think there's a business opportunity here for us. And I said, why don't we go around? There's a lot of older people. Maybe the husband died. The wife don't want nothing to do with the farm, or the farm's in a trust, and the adult children don't want nothing to do with farming or running the farm. And we'll offer them a lease. Because right now you can't buy land in South Florida and farm it. There's no there's no return on investment there.
You're going to lose the money.
You're never, if you love it as a passion, go for it. But it's not a business at this point. The property rates are way too high. But you can still make money leasing. And in fact, across America, most farmland is leased now, by the way. And so we started going around here and there, leasing, another 5 acres here, another 5 acres there, and a few years went by, and all of a sudden we're running out of fruit again. And that's what we do. Just every year, we're always on the hunt. We talk to people and we keep adding. And so now we're at the point where our business is probably 75% retail, and then we only sell wholesale what we can't sell retail. We dump that to the wholesale market. It was more of an evolution, John. I didn't sit there and write up a business plan and say, okay, we're going to grow by this much per year, yada, yada, yada. It was more of this evolution as the website took off and more people started buying from us. We just had to buy more land. And at this point, the caretaking company had dissolved. And it was a perfect Reese peanut butter cup. My partner's chocolate, my peanut butter, made a business. So he has the equipment. He has like agriculture knowledge, like a PhD. I mean, the guy's a genius when it comes to this stuff. And he's got access to the workers, because we have our own workers, but then you also have to bring in crews from time to time to augment. I have the marketing. I have my YouTube channel. I have Instagram, TikTok. I've got the website and the ability to sell. And it's just a perfect match. And so I handle that side of it. And then he handles the more hands-on stuff. And then little by little, when I'm out riding with these guys, when I'm out working with these guys, I learned what to do also. But I'm not out here every day hands-on farming. We have workers doing that and stuff like that. But I do a lot of the picking for our retail business. I go out every Monday morning and pick.
Yeah, I've seen some of them YouTube videos with farmers driving around tractors, and those videos get tons of views. Maybe you need to get a tractor and just make videos in the tractor like you're really not doing much.
I mean, I've seen them where they're in the combines playing a PS4. You know what I mean? Right. In air conditioning. Yeah, yeah.
All right, Tom, so it sounds to me like you're working a lot harder now than you even ever did in corporate. And what'd you say to that?
Yeah, I definitely work physically harder now. Physically harder, especially on Sundays and Mondays. Sundays and Mondays is our picking, packing, and shipping days. And I have to, at the end of the day, I say to my wife, are we done? Are you sure? Because once my boots come off, they ain't going back on. My feet are too swollen. I'm not even going to be able to bend over and put my boots back on. However, I sleep like a baby. Now, when I was a vice president at the corporation, I was in sales. That's like being on a sports team. It don't matter how good last quarter was. If you ain't producing this quarter, they're on your ass. You're losing your job. They're threatening to fire you, that sort of thing. You're always thinking about the next deal. You're always thinking about what could go wrong. You're always thinking about catching a plane. I was living in hotels. So while this job, the farming, is physically difficult, and it's a very physically demanding job, it's a little easier, like from a stress perspective. Where the other job, the career at the company, or the suit and tie job, very high stress. I mean, just a lot of stress in a job like that.
So would you ever go back to the corporate job now?
I would not, and I could answer that very confidently because I did go back. In 2018, they asked me to go back, and I tested it out, and they sat me down a month later. They hired me in for a specific job. I went to work for this guy named David. A month in, they sat me down for lunch. They said, you no longer work for David, you're working for this other guy, and you're no longer going to be doing this, you're doing that. And I was like, can you quit a job in a month? Can I quit this job in a month? And I said, that just wouldn't be right. And I said, let me just give it another couple months, give it a go. And it just never worked. And no, I look, if I had to feed my family, if disaster struck and I had to go back, I definitely would, to make money, to survive. But if I could choose my lifestyle, it's definitely this. I like doing this. And I like the physical work. I like sweating. I like, it keeps you fit. I like having I like coming home with a couple of nicks on your fingers and a little pain in the feet. You know what I mean? There's just, I don't know why, I just like that.
All right, so another question, looking back, so you've been doing this a while, is if you could go back to like when you graduated high school, and instead of going to college and then get a corporate job, would you take a different route instead and go and get into farming? Because I know your son's like around that age. And what would you recommend kids out there, especially if there's younger people watching this video, that they get into farming or corporate? And should they go into corporate, save money so they could buy a farm later, or just get into farming now?
John, I don't know if it's fair for me to answer this question, because as an older guy and as someone who has a 401k and a pension and stuff like that, I kind of have the luxury to say, you know what, maybe when I was younger, it would have been better to go out on a tightrope without a net underneath me, something entrepreneurial like starting a farm. But I also think as a young person, you can afford to fail 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 times. You could fail 5 or 6 times before you're 30, and then the 7th time at age 30, the business you start hits and you're on easy street. You've got a great, successful business and you can make money and have a very fulfilling life. And so I think if you are going to be entrepreneurial, it's good to start young. And I have this whole thing about, I looked this up. The average college tuition, the average 4-year college degree costs about $150,000. Do you know how much it costs to start a pizza place?
$150,000?
$150,000 on average, right? And if you start a pizza place for $150,000, you ain't gonna make money in year 1, 2, 3, or 4. Maybe around year 4, you'll start getting profitable. But you start your own business, maybe you make enough to pay the bills, but that's about it. But then at year 5, you might get going at a gallop. Maybe you open up a 2nd location, a 3rd location, right? But if you come home from graduation and you're at the graduation party and you walk up to the table and grandma's there and grandpa's there and all your old aunts, and you say, guess what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna start a pizza business. They're gonna tell you you're crazy. No, I'm gonna invest $150,000 and I'm gonna work my butt off. And someday I might own a whole chain of pizza places. They're gonna tell you don't do it. They're gonna say go to college. And you're gonna say, okay, what should I go to college for? And they're gonna say, nothing, just go to college. You need to go to college. And a lot of people go to college for college's sake, and they invest that same 4 years, that same $150,000, and now it's year 5, and they still don't know what they wanna do. They still don't have a direction, and now they have $150,000 debt. The pizza place, you put your money up front, you've been paying that debt down. And so I think a lot of people fail to realize that college, in my opinion, college is an investment in yourself and in your future, no different than if you wanted to go out and buy a backhoe and a dump truck and do some excavation work. No different than if you wanted to lease a facility, put floors in, and open up a yoga studio. It's an investment in yourself that should have a return going forward. And so when people say, oh, don't worry about it, just go to college, and in your freshman year you'll be exposed to stuff, and maybe in your sophomore year you'll pick a major and you'll know what you want to do going forward, right? Well, they're never going to say to you, buy a bunch of trucks in a warehouse and pay $150,000 for that, and you'll figure out what business you're going to be in, right? They'd laugh you out of the room if you said you're going to do that. But millions of people do that with college every year, and then they're all pissed they can't pay back their debt. But the guy who started a tow truck company at age 18, he's got a bunch of debt too, right? But no one cries about his debt, and he took a risk on himself just like the college person. So I think I went off on a little tangent there, John, and I apologize. But back to your original question of if I could do over again or what would I recommend to a young person. I really, a lot of people say do what you want. They say if you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life. Well, I'll tell you right now, I love having sex, but I would hate to be a prostitute. So that's not true, I really do recommend for young people, go for the money. Go for the money early when you're young, and you could just work 12 hours, go out for dinner, network, do what you got to do, get on a plane the next day or work an extra shift and bank up that money. And bank it up. And then later on, if there's something you want to do, now you got some power, now you got some money. And you don't have to leave your job and start a business. I didn't. What did I just tell you guys? We phased into this. And as I sort of tapered down my career, we tapered up with the farm. And one thing, they talk about in business, like, you got to have a plan and you got to have this and that. One thing they never tell you is whatever you're going to invest, you better set aside about 25% more because you're going to have a piece of equipment that breaks. Or in our case, we got hit with Hurricane Irma in 2017. Things come up and you gotta have that money in reserve. And as a 55-year-old guy, who I still get out there and hit it, but like I told you, around about 7 o'clock, these boots need to come off. When I was 22, you wanted me to put in a 24-hour shift? No problem. Go home, sleep 8 hours. You want me to work another 24 and you're gonna pay me overtime? I'm on it, But as you get older, you just physically can't do that. So I know that's like not popular. You're supposed to follow your heart. You're supposed to do what you love and you never work a day in your life. But at the end of the day, a job is a job. You are somewhere because you have to be there. You're doing something someone else wants you to do because that's what they want you to do. You're not doing what you want to do. I don't care if you love it or not, if it's your passion or not. That's what the sacrifice of a job is. So you might as well make as much money as you can. And again, I might be biased because that's kind of the route I took. I said, I'm going to go into the corporate world and I'm just going to hammer. I'm just going to keep getting promotions and just go at it as hard as I can so that later in life I could kind of invest in something and then kind of, mellow out and maybe then do more what I want to do.
All right, Tom. Yeah, so definitely understand. I definitely would agree with you on the college, investing in the college, because when you invest in the college, not only are you in debt when you graduate, but now you're leaving it up to somebody else to hire you to get a job. So you're still in debt and you're not even really in control of your own destiny because now, you need to interview well and somebody has to hire you. But if you once again, took the money, invested in a business, right? Then it's like, you better have a darn good work ethic. And I think that's where a lot of, especially younger people these days fail because they don't have a strong work ethic and people tend to be, unfortunately, lazy. Yeah. And if you're going to be lazy, definitely work for somebody else because if you run your own business, you're lazy, you're going broke. That's not going to happen. But if you have some strong work ethic, you're going to do what it takes to make the money, be your own boss. And if you're smart about it, I think that's a much more wise approach so that you be successful in the long run.
There's something else. You're not just in debt after 4 years. You've missed out on 4 years of opportunity cost.
And income, yeah.
Yeah. So you could have got a job. Oh, people say, 30 grand a year, it's not a lot of money. 40 grand a year, it's not a lot of money. 40 grand a year times 4 is 160 grand. So you could be ahead, well, maybe you make the 160, but you live like you're in college. Live like a poor college student, making that 160. By the time 4 years go by, you might have 70, 75 grand saved up. If you have been investing it, you might have 100 grand saved up. So instead of having 150 in debt, you got 100 grand saved up, you're 250K ahead of where you would have been. And the other thing, not only do you have to interview well and hope you get the job, once you get that job, you got to hope the people you work for run that business good also. Because you could be the greatest worker in the world, but if the boss or the owner flies that plane into a mountain and that company goes out of business, don't matter how good and how hard you worked, you're out of a job anyway.
And you better hope there's no corporate whatever talk circles and all these different cliques and all this stuff, and you better basically kiss butt to be in the in crowd, because if you're in the out crowd, people are going to talk bad about you, and then you're going to get fired anyways.
Right. Yes.
Anyways, there's a lot of BS in corporate. I'm not a big fan myself. So, Tom, we talked a lot about, you as a commercial farmer, because, unlike most people, I go to their farm, they're kind of like I would call it a more hobby farm. You're like a serious commercial farmer. We talked about the business aspect, which is really important, because that's something you could share with everybody that a lot of people I visit can't, because they're kind of just like hippies, kind of farming and making a little living. Yeah. But I really kind of want to get into some of the crops you grow and kind of get more deeper into that. Let's talk more about the avocados and some of the myths about avocados that are put online. People have all these videos like growing avocado tree from a pit, and I showed earlier your example. But aside from that, what are some of the other avocado myths that are just propagated online that you just see are just totally false?
A lot of the myths have to do with ripening. Old wives' tales. So you'll see someone at the store shaking an avocado, and they say if the seed moves around on the inside, that means your avocado is ripe. Now prepare for comments, because people they're not gonna like what I'm about to say. But there are hundreds of varieties of avocado. There's probably 50 varieties of avocado that are sold commercially. Some of them have an attached seed, the whole variety. Some have a detached seed, and some are semi-attached. So if you pick up an avocado and shake it, and you hear the seed moving around inside, that doesn't mean it's ripe. That means it has a detached seed. That means it's a cultivar. The one next to it is going to be detached also, and the one next to it is going to be detached.
So it's like a freestone peach or a clingstone.
Same idea. Same idea. So that's a big one. So whenever I give avocados to people, they go shaking them, and if they don't hear the seed, they'll say, oh, you picked that too early. No, that's a variety of avocado that has an attached seed. Another thing people love to say is when you get home with your avocados, they want you to put it in a paper bag with an apple or with a banana, because the ethylene will cause the ripening so that you'll ripen your avocado faster. And while that's true, your avocado will soften faster. It's not going to ripen and taste as good if you just leave it on the counter and let it just ripen at room temperature. People are always in a hurry to rush their avocados, and the thing about an avocado, you need a 7 to 10 day lead time. If you're having a Cinco de Mayo party, you're having a Super Bowl party, you got to get your avocados a week to 10 days ahead of time. Now, the good news is, if they do start to soften a little too fast on the counter, stick them in the fridge for a day or two. That'll slow it down. But if you're like, oh, I want guacamole tomorrow, you're almost never going to get lucky enough to where you're going to find avocados soft enough in the market.
I don't know, I would disagree with you. You might have to go to 10 markets. One of those markets will have some soft avocados, because I've done that before, and it's a pain.
It's hard, right? Yeah, it's hard to do that, right? And so avocados require a little upfront planning, and all the people say leave them in the front seat of your car in the sun, and that, you're not really ripening it, you're spoiling the avocado.
So what's the best way to ripen them?
Room temperature on your counter for 7 to 10 days after they were picked. Avocados are climacteric, which means they continue ripening off the tree. And in fact, here's another myth, avocados won't ripen fully on the tree. Unlike a tomato, you can go out in your garden, pick a tomato and eat it. A mango, you can grab a mango off, even though mangoes are climacteric too, but they'll also ripen all the way on the tree, but they'll continue ripening off the tree. An apple, you can grab an apple off a tree if they're ready to eat it. You're never going to have an avocado that's softened up and ready to eat off the tree. A lot of people think you can do that. You can't. A lot of people say, oh, we just wait for our avocados to drop, and that's the sign that they're ripe, and that's the time to eat them. Once again, no. Avocados have their season. For example, we are sitting under a Choquette variety avocado, Choquette. I used to say Choquette, and a member of the actual Choquette family called me and said, you're pronouncing our name wrong. So now I'm calling it Choquette. We're sitting under a Choquette tree. We usually pick Choquettes, we start the last Monday of September. That's when a Choquette is ripe. It has nothing to do with you can smell it or it glows or it lights up. That's just when we start picking them. But if I don't want to sell them then, if I want to hold them into October, I can hold them. If I want to hold them into November, I can even hold them on the trees into November, let them get bigger. Maybe the market price is low and I'm taking a risk that maybe the price will be higher if I hang on to them. But they're going to sit on the tree. But if you go too long, They're still going to sit on the tree. They're going to look perfect. They're going to look, they're going to feel hard. But if you pick it, say, after 3 months, into the 4th month, open it up, the seed's already going to start to be throwing roots. You're going to get a shoot, and they're going to taste very sour. An avocado never ripens on the tree. That's another myth.
And then, Tom, what's the temperature that avocados are cold damage and will never ripen after that point?
32, freeze.
So if avocados can be kept at 34, 35 and still, and take out of the fridge or whatever, out of the cold chain and commercial industry, and then put on your counter, and then still be fine, right?
Yeah, once you freeze them, they get cell damage. And I've tried it. I've frozen avocado to try it out, and it's yucky. Now, a lot of people make avocado shakes, and in fact, there are certain cultures they prefer to have an avocado with condensed milk, with sugar, with milk, and they make shakes out of them. They eat them more like a dessert, more like a sweet fruit. If you're gonna freeze an avocado and then use it later in a sweet shake or something like that, then it's not so bad. I've done it. But unlike other fruits, like a banana, you can freeze a banana, take it out of the freezer, eat it semi-frozen. It tastes a little like ice cream. It's great. Avocados take cell damage, and it's even hard to swallow one after it's been in the freezer.
All right, Tom, so let's talk about, we talked about avocados, let's talk about growing avocado trees. How many cultivars of avocados do you grow? And you want to talk a little bit about your favorite varieties for here in Florida that are productive every single year?
Yes. I grow 24 different varieties, and avocados have early, mid, and late season. And as I told you earlier, as we leased these groves, we decided, okay, last year we ran out of early, so we got to find a grove that has early season variety avocados, such as like the Donnie, the Simmons. There's one called the Aru. Then there's one called Miguel that kind of starts up in July, starts ticking into the mid-season. And then there's the mids, the summer varieties, and then you have the late season varieties. As far as growing commercially, you definitely want to avoid ones that are like alternate bearers. Now, I grow on the Hall, and it is absolutely delicious. I love it, but it's also an alternate bearer. So I get a really heavy, like heavy crop. I love doing videos underneath my Hall tree because it's like avocados are raining down on me. You come out to that same tree a year later, there might be one, there might be two, there might be none on that tree. And so there's certain ones that we know are workhorses. So the Choquette, great producer. The Monroe, probably the most steady, predictable, high output producer you're gonna grow. Now, my favorite variety to eat is called the Lula. And I was surprised to learn this because I had a Lula tree in my yard when we moved here. Not in the grove, it was in the backyard.
So it's like a personal tree.
If I can take you to 5 different farmers right now, they're gonna have 20 acres, 40 acres. They're gonna have 1 or 2 Lula trees in their backyard.
Is it for pollination?
No, it's for eating. It is delicious. But we can't sell them. We could sell them, but there's no market for them. Why? Because the flesh to seed ratio is really bad. It's got a huge, it's only about an 8-ounce avocado, but it's got a seed the same size as one of these Choquettes, which is gonna be 4 pounds. The seeds of our avocados are the size of a Hass avocado. That has that big seed and just a little ring of flesh around it, but the flesh is delicious. But if Publix, Kroger's, Walmart tried to sell that, people would feel like they got ripped off. In addition, the skin of the Lula avocado is very susceptible to anthracnose. Anthracnose is a naturally occurring fungus in the air. It's falling on you and me right now. It gets on all our fruit. And no matter how much you spray, no matter what you try to do to keep a Lula avocado clean, it's going to scar up. Now, that scarring doesn't affect the flesh. It doesn't affect the eating quality. But most people buy with their eyes, not their taste buds. And the supermarkets don't want what they call dirty fruit. So the Lula, bad seed to flesh ratio, dirty fruit, but the most delicious avocado I've ever eaten, and just about every avocado farmer will agree with me on that one. Great option for a backyard grower.
All right, Tom, so the next question is, somebody that lives here in South Florida, like if they can only plant one variety because they only have room for one variety in their backyard, what variety should that be in your recommendation?
Monroe.
Because
the tree's going to grow fast. The tree is vigorous. There's some diseases down here that Monroe has shown to be a little more resistant. They're all susceptible to all the diseases, but Monroe is a little more resistant than other varieties. It's delicious. It's got a little bit of I say it's delicious. It's got a little bit of a higher oil content than some of the other tropical varieties. It's really nice. And for me, I call Monroe the guacamole avocado. You go to a Mexican restaurant, they sit there, they cut open a dozen of the little Hass avocados to make guacamole. Delicious. I'm not criticizing that at all. But imagine you have a party and you got to cut open 40 avocados. All right. These Monroe, they get to 3 pounds each. You're feeding a whole party. Just cut, squeeze, cut, squeeze, 3 or 4 avocado flesh, and you've got 4 pounds of guacamole. And it's got a nice oily consistency like the Hass. It's also, like I said, a fast grower, a consistent producer. So it produces every year and it produces a high yield. It's a late season variety with a long hang time. So we start picking them late November, early December. You could leave them on the tree for 4 months.
All right, Tom, so we talked a lot about the avocados, but another part of this episode show people the Monstera Deliciosa that you're growing that you also sell online. Now, this is a fruit that most Americans, even people around the world, don't even know about. So you want to explain to people what the Monstera Deliciosa is, what it tastes like, and then more importantly, literally why you're growing them up, your avocados, as like a sacrificial trellis at this point.
I've gotten lucky twice in this business. I bought an avocado farm, and all of a sudden avocados became cute. They became memes. They became sort of like a social curiosity, right? Then I got lucky again. The guy that owned the original caretaking company that I worked for, who he has since retired, and we've stayed friends to this day. He goes, that produces an edible fruit, but you got to be careful because it burns your lips. And I learned how to eat it by burning my lips a few times. And then next thing you know, that fruit becomes trendy on TikTok. And so now I've got avocados that are a trend. And now I grow this fruit called Monstera Deliciosa. It looks like an ear of corn. It grows from the Monstera Deliciosa plant, which is also an extremely popular house plant. The plant itself is quite trendy nowadays too. A lot of people, they get their first apartment, they put a Monstera Deliciosa plant. You'll see paintings of them on the wall. There are other types of Monstera that people collect too. This one produces an edible fruit that I'm talking about right now. And I said, maybe I could sell these. Let me put them on the website. I put them on guacfarm.com. I'm a football coach. Well, I'm the equipment manager. I don't actually coach the games, but I fix the helmets and everything, right? And Saturday is game day. And I came back from our youth football program on a Saturday afternoon, and I took a bunch of pictures, put Monstera Deliciosa up for sale on the website around 7 p.m. on a Sunday. 7 p.m. on a Saturday. Sunday came and went. I was getting orders. Monday morning, I woke up and my inbox was full. I panicked. I ran out and I started counting. Now, these are hard to harvest. You see what those leaves look like. You got to you got to go into this plant and, pick these things.
And you got to find them. I mean, I was just trying to look to make a video of one, and I was kind of look around a bunch.
Yeah, and in fairness to you, when they're in season, they're a lot bigger and easier to find. But still, right? I run back in the house. I marked them out of stock. I sold out my entire Monstera crop in 20 hours. And a lot of it were people that wanted to, enjoy the novelty of it and make their own TikTok, make their own Instagram reel of eating the poisonous fruit if you don't let it ripen the right way. So Monstera is really interesting because it looks like an ear of corn, and you can eat about an inch a day. It ripens about an inch at a time, and these petals on it, these scales, open up and expose the flesh underneath. Just like I said with avocado, you let the Monstera ripen at room temperature on a plate in your kitchen. When that opens up, your whole house smells like fruit salad. It's also called the fruit salad fruit. And the plant is also called the Swiss cheese plant because it has big holes in it. It smells amazing in your house. And you take a bite, they are like little corn kernels, and it tastes like a combination of pine, and everyone agrees, this is what everyone will tell you. It tastes like pineapple and banana. And if they're a tropical fruit lover that knows about stuff like you do, they'll say, and also guanabana or soursop.
Yeah, guanabana.
Now, other people will say that with a splash of tropical. But if you know your tropical fruits, it's guanabana, pineapple, and banana. And you bite into one of those things and you want to hug somebody. So what's going on here, John, in South Florida? We're like most of America. John Cougar Mellencamp was singing about this in the 80s. This is nothing new. We're losing farmland to housing developments. And so those of us that are still farming this land, and these farms that I lease that I told you about, I'm probably going to be the last guy to farm them. They're just hanging on till they get rezoned residential, and then they're going to sell out to developers, right? So those of us that are still giving this a go and wanting to work this land, we have less land to work with. And so more and more you see people doing like a tiered farming system. So what you see behind me here are avocados. We call that a canopy crop. Then you also want to lay down a ground crop. Now, a good ground crop might be pineapples. You could put 2 rows of pineapples between each tree. And then some people want to plant a mid crop, so something that climbs and then blooms, say like, you know, at eye level or maybe 8 or 10 feet high, like a dragon fruit or something like that. Well, for me, the Monstera is not only my ground crop, Monstera will climb a tree. And so I use that as both my ground and my mid crop. Now, I know you're organic, but I'm just going to say this. It does require a lot more fertilizer and stuff like that.
To get it to fruit.
Yeah, just because now I not only have trees, you know, there's only so much nutrition in this ground. And these trees have been here 40 years, so they've been sucking nutrition out of the ground. And it's not like I get a flood every year to replenish, you know, bring nutrients in. And so the more you use, the more you have to fertilize.
I do agree with that, yeah.
Okay, and so we do hit it. We have to hit it with more fertilizer, but this gives us a chance to get more output out of our ever shrinking land. And here's what happens. Not only do we lose these farms to development, but for every 10 or 12 farms we lose to new houses, those houses need trees, those houses need bushes, those houses need houseplants. So someone will come along and buy a grove like this, knock it all down, and create a nursery for ornamentals. So not only do we lose the fruit-bearing, the food-bearing land to the housing itself, but then for every X amount of acres, we lose an acre to nurseries. And so those of us that are like trying to make a go of this and just keep it going, that's something we've added. And I know people that grow a lot of Monstera, but more as a decorative thing or as a backyard thing. Outside of the country of Portugal, where I know they grow it commercially, I'm the only one I'm aware of that like grows Monstera fruit on purpose, specifically to sell the fruit to my customers.
And then the question I have for you, is it like totally, because when I had it, it like burned my tongue, so that could 100% completely go away, and it's like it's no longer acid if it's completely ripe?
That's correct, yes. And the fruit tells you when to eat it. It literally opens up an inch at a time, and you'll see the exposed white flesh. If you go trying to peel it back and go further, or you try to dig them kernels up earlier and eat them, it's the same chemical that's in a pineapple. If you ever bit into a pineapple and got that tickle in your throat.
Bromelain. It's like an enzyme?
Whatever it is, I don't know the name of it, but it's not a burn like a jalapeno pepper. It's more like you bit into like fiberglass insulation. It's like a picky, needly kind of thing. Like you want to like scrape the needles off. I don't know the chemistry of it, but I know like once they sweeten up, I don't know if the sugar neutralizes that, but that burn goes away. Now what'll happen is you're eating that inch. As you get a little closer, you'll get it. You get a little tingle even when it's ripe, but not that like that burn.
So don't eat too far as it ripens.
Eat, let it ripe. Here's what I tell people. It's like an ear of corn. Pick it up, flick it with your finger. Whatever kernels fall off, I wish I had a ripe one to I wish I had a ripe one to eat, but I wish I had a ripe one to use for demonstration. Whatever falls off on its own, you're free to eat.
All right.
Yeah.
Cool. Now I know besides the Monstera, you also grow the mangoes for shipping as well. So you want to tell people briefly about the mangoes you're growing and why?
Yes. Okay. So as this business grew, I learned that avocado season is basically, for me, June through December. I could keep my fruit on the tree longer, but then you run into problems with timing for the trimming and the pruning and all that kind of stuff. So my avocado season is pretty much June through December. And then all of a sudden you stop selling fruit. And now May rolls around again. It's like I was starting my business all over again every year, because I have 5 months of no traffic to the website, 5 months of no sales. I'm not going to pre-sell avocado starting in January for a June crop, because if you don't get a crop, then, you know, what are you going to do? You got to give a zillion refunds and the bank's going to get mad and all this kind of stuff, right? So I started looking around. I needed some other crops to augment and build the business. But since I do mail order, you know, online sales, and I ship retail, I need these fruits, like I said before about avocado, that are climacteric. I need fruit that comes off the tree hard and takes about a week or so to ripen. So I got into 2 other fruits in addition to the Monstera and the avocado. One is mango, and the other is Mamey. If you were to look, now Mamey, that's a whole nother video. I'm not gonna, but that's another tropical fruit. Very well known in the tropical fruit community, ubiquitous down here in Miami. It's at every restaurant, every cafeteria. People love a Mamey shake. And when I first started selling it, I said to my partner, do you see anything interesting about the names? He said, no. I said, look at the last names. He said, no. I said, that's because you're Mexican. They're all Hispanic last names because that's who knows Mamey. It's people who we love to eat food we grew up with. When I go back to Scranton, Pennsylvania, I go to all my old pizza places, right? And so what I get so much pleasure when a person who's never heard of Mamey, never saw it before, but saw one of my videos and trusts me enough to buy one. They eat it and they say, oh my God, I got to get more. And they keep ordering it. So then we started with the Mamey. And then I just, had a few mango trees here that I started eating. And as I got to know other people in the tropical fruit community, I started getting into mangoes. And so I have Mamey now, January, February, March, April. And now I still have a little bit of gap till avocado. And I said, let me try to sell some mangoes. And they took off. Like, I couldn't believe the mango sales I had. Now, where I grew up in Scranton, Pennsylvania, you know what we think a mango is? To this day, on the supermarket shelf?
They're probably unripe and terrible and garbage.
Not even that. A bell pepper.
No, really?
Bell peppers are called mangoes. If you went to my dad... If we were visiting my dad right now and we went to the grocery store, you're going to see mangoes 3 for 99 cents or whatever. Bell peppers, labeled as mangoes.
Really? They say mangoes, but they're bell peppers.
That's what we called them growing up. That's what I thought a mango was.
That's weird.
Yeah. My Aunt Kathy had her first mango in her 70s that I sent her. She loves it. I send her mangoes all the time now. So I grow the traditional classic varieties of mangoes. There's like two sort of tiers of mango. There's like the fancy newer varieties that have been coming out. They are absolutely delicious. You bite into one, you want to hug somebody. They're so good. But we also have our Florida classics, or what a lot of people would call the commercial varieties, the Glen, the Kit, the Kent, the Valencia Pride. They are so good. Now, I mentioned the Kent. You'll find Kent in your grocery store. They'll be imported from Mexico. They will have been picked too early. They will have been chilled. When they got here, they might have been irradiated, and they were almost certainly artificially ripened with gas. And if you really try, you can smell the gas sometimes. That's one thing I do before I buy a mango, because sometimes I get a taste for a mango off season, and I will buy one at a grocery store. Even these like commercial varieties that I grow, like the classics, like the older ones, they're not the trendy ones, they're not the fancy ones. For most people in America who only have access to supermarket mangoes, they bite into one of these things, and I have customers for life now. I have customers, they'll buy 3 boxes, 30 pounds of one variety, and then the next day I get an order, 30 pounds of another. I'll call them, but did you just duplicate your order? No, I want all 6 boxes. And there is a real renaissance going on right now in the mango industry. There's a bunch of people up in Palm Beach County. You got Alex from Tropical Acres, you got Chris, you got Paul, you got Vince from Backyard Mangoes. Big mango festival coming up this weekend, right? Yep. I think that might be why you're in town.
That's why I'm in town.
Yeah, okay, yeah. And I can't go because the mayor of Miami is coming to visit my farm, and that was just not I'm not going to cancel on the mayor. And but there's this renaissance going on with mangoes now. It's just incredible. And like people, when they buy avocados from me, it's like, there's different varieties. Oh, that's cool. Oh, that's called a Simmons. No. Mango people, they want to know the variety. They want to know who are the breeding parents. They want to know the history of the cultivar. And it's become this really interesting thing. And so I started out where mango was just a little something to augment my business and kind of carry me through that time, that dead spot where I have no avocado. Now it's 50-50 mango and avocado. Yeah, on the retail side, I still sell a lot more avocados wholesale. I don't sell any mango. Well, I sell one variety called Tommy Atkins. We do sell those wholesale, but I don't sell those retail.
So break down the percentage of income based on the Monstera, mango, Mamey, and avocado.
Monstera is probably 5%.
So super small.
Yeah.
If you had more, could you sell it?
Yes. Yeah, if I could sell this whole 5 acres, if I had 5 acres, it goes like crazy. I wish I could grow it faster. But now that's probably only about 5% of my income just because of, you know, stock. Mamey, maybe another 10. Yeah, another 10. So that's 15. So that leaves 85%. I'd say 35 of that's mango and 50% of that is avocado.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a good amount of mango. Yeah, I mean, mango is probably the best-selling sweet fruit in the world. Yeah. Most popular. All right, cool, Tom. So I got to get going here because I got to go eat dinner and whatnot.
Yeah.
But, you know, where do you see the future of Sleepy Lizard Farm going?
That's a great question. We're losing farmland here in South Florida. And as I said earlier, I feel like I'm going to be the last guy to farm a lot of this land before it goes residential. I'm also already retired from one career. You and I had talked earlier about like the terms of doing a lease. Well, I'm 55 years old. I don't want to sign a 20-year lease at this point in my life, you know, and lock myself up. And so it's really, I have to think about what the next generation holds. And for me, I have an 18-year-old son. We have one son. There's no siblings. And so one thing I think about, John, is this is the type of business he could maybe back it up a little bit and go back to where he hires out a lot of the work. He wouldn't have to do this all on his own. There's a part of me that would love him to get married, take over the house, start having babies. We build a little cottage for my wife and me here in the back corner, give them their privacy, you know. And then in addition to him having a career, he kind of is leaning toward the same kind of career I have, flying all around the world, suit and tie, doing big deals. You know, he's that kind of person. He's got that kind of ambition. But I think these young people need to stop looking at, when people say, what do you want to do for a living? I think the answer needs to be 3 or 4 different things. I think with the way the economy is and the way there's uncertainty in jobs and corporations and stuff like that, I think having multiple sources of income is a very wise thing to do. And so I feel as a dad, one of the things I could do for my son, if this is what he wanted to do, would be to sort of encapsulate some more process, some more automation. And by that, I don't mean machinery, but automate the business a little more. And kind
so that he could work it without showing up because it's all working without him, and he basically kind of gets a check. I mean,
or he might have like a 1 day a week or a half a day a week role to keep things going. Sure yeah. You know, hire, fire, you know, work out deals with packing houses and different things. You know, buy the big equipment and stuff like that. But as far as the day-to-day goes, I'll turn that over to him. The only problem is my sales are 100% based on my Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube.
Well, you better start getting him in there.
I know.
Or transferring to an AI person.
Yeah. It's just too much about, like, it's too much me, it's too much my videos, you know. And if we could come up with some way to market where it ain't just like me making videos, I think then we got a little bit more of a runaway train situation. So that's one way to go. But you know what? There's another part of me that says the decision might be made for us because the city's chasing us. You know, my wife and I, we first moved to a little island off the coast of Miami, and the city chased us. You know, oh, we're putting up a tower, but don't worry, this will be the last one. And then they voted in a new city council, and then the next tower goes up. And now that place went from green grass and palm trees and sand, it looks like Miami Beach. It's all buildings now, you know? And now we're out here, and the city's chasing us again. And there's a part of me that wonders, it might not matter what I want to do. We might just wind up losing all this land to development and, you know, the population influx that's coming to Florida.
So, Tom, if somebody wants to buy some of your mangoes, avocados, Mamey, or even that Monstera and try that, how can they do that?
Thank you. We sell our fruit at guacfarm.com. GUACFARM.com. And if you want to get a little education about the fruit that's there, we have the Sleepy Lizard YouTube channel. And then I'm also on Instagram and TikTok and Facebook. All you got to do is search Sleepy Lizard. I don't know what the little @ and all that stuff is. And those would be, but it's guacfarm.com, GUACFARM.com.
Awesome, Tom. So I'll go ahead and put the links down below in the description, as well as pin to the first comment. All right, Tom, any final words of wisdom you'd like to share with all my viewers today before we sign off?
I love that question, John. When I was a sales manager, I would always encourage my reps to lose business, to go out and try to win an order and lose. And I would always say, I'd rather see you go 6 for 10 than 3 for 3. I'd rather you win 6 deals and lose 4 than win 3. Because you know why? You got twice as much business, even though you lost 4. And what that segues into is, don't be afraid to try things and make mistakes. I grew up in the 80s. Something happened. It was cool to make mistakes. No one cared. You tried something, you scraped your knee, whatever, you got up and you tried again. Everyone wants perfection now. And they get so hung up trying to come up with the best plan and the best idea because they don't want to make any mistakes. They end up not doing anything at all. And I tell people who are growing all the time, oh, do you think I could grow an avocado here or a mango? Try it. Who cares?
Yeah.
Who cares? If the thing dies, you know you can't. If it lived, you know you can. So my general word of wisdom to anyone is go out there and make some mistakes.
Awesome. Definitely wise words of advice. You know, I've made so many mistakes gardening and growing my own food. I still make mistakes, but with every mistake, more importantly, I learn what not to do so that I don't make that mistake again. And so, you know, I encourage all you guys out there to start planting some fruit trees, planting some vegetables, whatever you can, and just start experimenting and see what you can get away with. And one day maybe you'll be as successful as Tom and have an orchard of avocados and mangoes, mamey, chico sapote, sapotillas, and even learn about the Monstera and how to even make that more financially profitable than even his primary crop, the avocado. All right, guys, so I hope you really enjoyed this episode today at Sleepy Lizard Farm. If you did, give this video a big thumbs up. More importantly, share this with other people online so that they can learn the truth about commercial farming here in South Florida. Also, be sure to click that subscribe button so you don't miss out on my new and upcoming episodes. I've come in every 5 to 7 days. You never know where I'll show up, what you'll be learning on my YouTube channel, and make sure you click the little bell so you get notified as my new videos come out. And finally, be sure to check my past episodes. My past episodes are a wealth of knowledge. Over 1,800 episodes at this time on this channel dedicated to teaching you guys all about how to grow your own food at home. So with that, my name is John Kohler with growingyourgreens.com. We'll see you next time. Until then, remember, keep on growing